back. Man, it's awesome class today. So great to learn from you and get on the mat with you and just break down like the levels.
Man, I'm just honored to be able to share it. You know, like for me, the whole thing is just really being able to spread jiu-jitsu and teach jiu-jitsu. I love it when people get inspired and motivated by it, because I mean, jiu-jitsu's helped my life so much. It's helped your life, changed both of our lives in such a profound way, you know, to be able to pass that on to others. And like I said, kind of, you know, my way of kind of giving back to the world, right? So it's like a blessing when you can do what you love, right? And people appreciate it.
Yeah.
So that's the ultimate reward.
Was this really the first class since?
Yeah, the first time I've taught 2 seminars.
Okay.
But it's the first time I've taught a class in 2 years almost.
Like in person, right? And with people because of
COVID.
It tried to kill jiu-jitsu, right? The opposite.
The zombie apocalypse.
The exact opposite of social distancing.
Yeah. The zombie apocalypse.
How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu?
26 years now.
26 years.
26 years, yeah.
You just excited?
Crazy, it just flies by, you know?
How long have you been teaching?
I've been teaching for 20 years. Well,
probably
a little bit longer. Well, so when I was a blue belt, we had this program at UCLA, and they had me teach the program. So I taught the program for 2 semesters, and it was in the Blue Room at the Wooden Center at UCLA, on the campus of UCLA. And what it was it was an introductory program for the students at UCLA, and it was 2 nights a week. And the whole goal was to try to help them, like inspire them and like show them just kind of a basic, you know, some basics of jiu-jitsu, and to get them to basically sign up at the school. So I did that for a while as a blue belt. But I mean, looking back, I was just a terrible teacher.
Was that in the 90s?
Yeah, it was crazy. 96.
That's crazy.
96. So I was teaching there. And then when I really took up teaching kind of more full-time was in 2000. So 21 years. And I was a brown belt at the time. And that's when I kind of started teaching at the academy, at Rickson's Academy. So kind of more full-time.
We were about to walk out of the gym, right? And then somebody was going over some leg lock thing, and you're like, oh, hold on. And you took your shoes off and you got on the mat again. And it took some minutes, like, hey, check this out, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and so it shows me something, right? So I'm just going to ask you, like, have you gotten tired of teaching and sharing and doing jiu-jitsu?
Man, it's like, what a blessing. I get to do what I love for a living, right? I mean, it's funny because I love teaching. I love sharing jiu-jitsu. I think the art's amazing for so many different reasons. But also, you know, just that wanting to help people, you know. And it's funny because they were going over leg lock stuff. And for me, my New Year's resolution, one of my New Year's resolutions, like every year I say, okay, what is the aspect of my game that I want to start to develop this year? What, you know, so I'll pick like one position or one specific thing to kind of focus on for the year that I'm really going to put a lot of time and energy into, you know, get better at. And so this year it was guillotines and footlocks, and a straight footlock. My good buddy Matt Jones, who's in Australia, was at my camp in Thailand, and he's been coming out to LA for the last 5 years to train with me. But he's got this footlock that is insane, that I've felt a bunch of different ways to do a footlock, like Eric Paulson, Dean Lister, you know, Rickson's way to do the footlock. They all have kind of different ways of like gripping and doing their hands. And Matt showed me this way that he does it, and I never felt anything like it before. I was just like, wow, it's insane. And it improved upon so many different areas and elements, like ways that people could typically defend or normally defend. You couldn't defend it anymore. You could use it with different leg positionings. And, you know, for me, I'm never stuck in a specific way of doing things. For me, it's always what is the most efficient and what is the most effective. You know, if both things work, then what uses less energy? and I'm going to use that one. So I'm constantly trying to improve myself. And once I find
efficiency and effectiveness, that's it, right? That's what it's all about,
that's
right there.
That's what it's all about, and it's the constant.
That's what I think about when I think of you, and I think about the way how you think. Like, I mean, that's what it should be about, right?
Right. And that's what jiu-jitsu is. I mean, I think it's the constant, strive for that, right? Like, once I can do something, can I get the same results using less energy? And so for me, I'm constantly looking to get better, constantly trying to get better, constantly trying to learn. I'm just as passionate about learning as I am as teaching. And so once I find a better way to do it, that's going to be the new way. I'm willing to commit the time and energy into developing that and getting better. So I've been playing around with this footlock. I've been doing it now for the past 4 or 5 months, just playing around with it and like the different gripping and stuff like that. And I found like, wow, it changes everything. It's so much better than the way that I was taught. And so I saw the guys playing around with it. I'm like, oh man, feel this. And let me just show you this little detail. And then what's also important, as a teacher is like, hey, feel it this way and feel it that way. And then, to give them the example, to show them why, have them feel it, why this way works better than the other way. So
yeah, it was really cool to see you just kind of come alive. Like we're about to walk out of the of the building, and you're like, hold on.
And I looked again. I'm like, oh man, let me take my shoes off. Let me just show you guys this.
Yeah, that was really cool. I've been spending a lot of time. I did a lot of footlocks, but especially the last 6-7 years, I've been just playing around with mainly like straight footlocks because of IBJJF, and I was doing a lot of tournaments like that. And so it was really cool the way you position your feet, and I was like, well, it made me want to get down and take my shoes off and get in there and just talk about stuff, I can go on about that,
Well, that's guys, that's like us. We're so passionate about jiu-jitsu. I mean, look, we made it our career, right? So, I mean, you got to have love for it because it's not an easy career to choose, right? And even getting a black belt in jiu-jitsu is like that. You love it that much, you're willing to put your body on the line every day and basically rent your body to other people to bend in places that it's not supposed to bend. That's basically what we're doing, right? You have someone that's also trying to push your joints in directions. So we're going to do that every day for the rest of our life. You got to love it, right? You got to love it to have that.
Why do you love it so much?
For me, it's more a mental thing. There's so many different reasons. Right. It's hard to pick one thing, but right. Ultimately, it's helped me to become a better person. Physically, the exercise, the discipline, mentally, the stress release, and then spiritually too. Developing confidence in myself, feeling better about myself, doing something that I enjoy that brings me happiness. So all of those things that spiritual things. So I think for me, jiu-jitsu has helped me evolve so much in all those different aspects of life. And that's, everyone asks me why do you teach jiu-jitsu? And that's why I'm passionate about it. It's like, it was such an amazing tool for my own personal development that I feel like I want to give it to other people. I want to share it with other people,
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully we stay, not hopefully, we're going to be staying, we're doing this, hopefully, I keep saying hopefully, for the rest of our lives, that's my plan.
Yeah, it's my plan too, and I definitely think it's possible, Elio's a perfect example, right? He's in his 90s, and he's still getting on the mat, he's still putting on the gi, he's still training with blue belts, our capacity will deteriorate, but it doesn't mean we have to stop doing what we love, right? We have to just be creative and figure out new ways to train, new ways to challenge ourselves. And that's what Elio would do. He would do positional training. And sometimes he would just, I'm going to lay down on the mount. You try to finish me. And that's all he would do is just defend, play defense.
Work on his defense.
Yeah, and that's it. Wouldn't even try to get out.
Different games, right, to win.
Right. Yeah, just creating games and creating different challenges for yourself. And
did you get a chance to train with him?
I never trained with him. I spent some time with him. So I was really fortunate. I got to meet him, and he didn't really speak any English, but man, I think he was probably in his later 80s at the time. And the first time I met him,
late 90s, mid 90s.
I was probably 97-ish. So I was 23, 24 at the time. And man, just shaking his hand, his grip was crazy.
Big old hands, big old wrists, right?
thick wrists. Like his wrists were like.
Remember that?
Well, what's crazy is like his hand would go down, and it would just become, it would go from a hand to a wrist.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it didn't shrink.
And
down.
he was like a smaller guy too.
Smaller guy, and just had those crazy thick wrists. I'm like, no wonder he had such a crazy collar choke, cross collar choke. That was, like I said, the Grandmaster choke, right? His cross collar choke was insane, but man, his wrists were freaking like that.
Yeah. When I always love hearing stories, you know, like old school stories. You know, do you have any cool Henry Gracie stories? Like I remember Salah shared with me one, just you were talking about how he would get in positions. He's like, nobody can beat me, and he would just like, he's like kind of crazy, you know, like he was telling Salah that, just his mindset, like nobody can beat me, nobody, and he was already in his, I don't know, like late 80s or something, you know.
Right.
And he got on the mat with him. I don't think he would train, but he was just the way his mindset, he really got inside of him, and just like, you know, nobody can beat me, basically.
And that never give up mentality, too, right? They had to throw in the towel with the Kimura, even though he got his arm broken. He was still wanting to go.
Yeah.
Upset that they threw in the towel, right? So yeah, that mindset is amazing, and I mean that was definitely passed on to Rickson. You know, like Rickson was a big believer in. That was something that one of the lessons that he really emphasized and passed on to us is develop yourself so that you become invincible. And by invincible, what that means, it doesn't mean that you can beat everyone, but it means that nobody can beat you, which is a different kind of mindset. And so, you know, we talked about that a little bit today. Is like, you know, if I'm fighting a bigger, stronger guy, and like the old days in the UFC, right? No weight limit, no time limit, right? Then for me, the job is just to survive and not get hurt. And as long as I can fight a guy for 20 minutes, 30 minutes and not get hurt, if I'm fighting a guy twice my size for 30 minutes and I don't get hurt, that's a victory, right? But we know that as people, especially bigger people, get tired, right? The momentum of the fight shifts. And so that was the focus for him. That's why he preferred longer time limits, right? It's like, I know you're not going to beat me. It's just going to take me time to beat you. Eventually, if nobody can beat you, eventually you're going to win. And so that was always his like, you know, you know, with him, it was just, nobody could ever submit him, right?
Right.
No, he could put him in the worst positions possible, and you're not going to be able to finish him. And then eventually he's going to finish you. So if you can't finish him and it's no time limit, well, you got problems.
Yeah. Hoist Gracie. I just remember, like, I just had a flashback of Sakuraba, you know, with the hoist, but then also Henzo.
Yeah.
You know, do you remember your thoughts during the Henzo fight?
I mean, I was just in shock, you know. It was a crazy move. But yeah, I mean, to see the bone sticking out of the elbow, you're just like, oh my god.
And then Henzo's reaction, like, whatever. Yeah. Let's keep going.
Pop it back in. The whole family is just kind of mental like that. Like, I heard a story about Rickson when he was, I think, an orange belt, and he was competing in a tournament, and he got caught in an arm lock and let the kid break his arm, and still finished, you know, end up winning and beat the kid with a cross collar. But it's you know, and that's at a young age, right? You're like, wow, you let your arm get broken, but that's the way they train themselves, right? That mindset of.
I remember at Henzo's, like, you know, I don't know how many years ago it was, but he had one picture in his gym, and the one picture he had in his gym was the fight with Sakuraba having Henzo in a Kimura.
Good reminder, huh?
What's that?
I said that's a crazy reminder for him to
just
like
just being so vulnerable and being like owning it, you know, in a way. I was like, wow, this guy's Henzo's different.
It's got to be motivational too, right? To like man, it's like you look at that and you're like, okay, well, I need to get better. Like, it's kind of motivation to keep training hard and keep. For me, you know, just keep training hard and keep getting better and better.
Just for me, it just made me like I always thought of Henzo like a god, but then it just kind of elevated him even more. Just for that picture to be there, right, to just own that moment, you know,
to show the humanness in him, right?
Yeah,
it's so important. Like I mean, when you put someone on such a high pedestal, like you treat them like it's hard to relate to them. But then when you see like, oh wow, this guy's human too. He can lose. He has emotions. He's got. Then you're like, yeah, you know, it's inspiring almost because it's like that's like me.
Yeah. And you talk about the hand, so the heart, you know, like never giving up,
Yeah.
like fighting to the end, not even to the end, just to past the end, you know,
Yeah.
to whatever, never tapping out, never giving up. Yeah. Did you ever think the Gracie family, the jiu-jitsu was going to grow like it did around the world? We never thought about those things, right?
No, I did think about them a lot. Yeah. And because, you know, when I was younger and I was training, my parents wanted me to be a doctor and engineer. They were coming from an Asian family. They were very, very focused on academics and education. And at the time, there was no money in it at all. This is like 97. I was very stressed out when I was younger about what am I gonna do when I get older? Like, am I gonna be able to afford a house? Or I was super stressed out all the time about making money, you know? And my parents came over here very poor, and that was a huge focus for them, is like making money, being able to just survival mentality, like being able to survive, being able to buy things, being able to provide for a family. So I'm like, how am I ever gonna be able to like find a girl to marry if I can't even like buy a house or support a family? Like, I come from just very traditional mindset of like the man goes to work and provides for the family. And so that was a huge source of stress for me always. And I was just thinking, you know, my dad told me something. He said, Henry, he goes, you have these are the two basically directions in life you want to do. Most people spend 8 hours a day working at a job that they hate. And then by the time they get off work, they're so tired, they don't even have, you know, the energy to enjoy the money that they made. So he said, either find something that you love and do what you love, and even if you make just a little bit of money, you'll still be happy because you're doing what you love, or find a job where you make a ton of money, and that way you have the time to do what you love. That way you don't have to work a lot, and you have more time, and then you can do what you love. And so that kind of
That's cool.
sat in the back of my mind, and I was like, okay, well, I'm doing what I love, and hopefully it'll work out. And it just ended up, you know, working out like year after year after year. I noticed a little bit of progress and more opportunities, and then, you know, I would start teaching a little bit and like, wow, okay, I can make a little bit of money from teaching, and if I get really, really good at this, maybe I can make. I never saw the potential of what it is now. You know, where people have schools and there's 1,000 students, and, you know, like now
all over the world, right?
Yeah, most of my work now is traveling all over the world, teaching seminars and doing camps. And I mean, it's unbelievable to me that I get to travel all over and do what I love. So I never saw the potential for that, because it was non-existent at the time. So how do you know, imagine? It's hard to imagine something that just wasn't there. But yeah, it ended up working out. So, you know, I just kind of trusted my heart and kind of followed my heart and kind of kept doing what I loved. And now I realize, like, no matter what it is, if you're amazing at what you do, you'll be able to make money. You know, you look at artists, right? There's so many starving artists, but the ones that are exceptional at what they do, they make money. Rock stars, you know, painters, whatever, right? And that's what we are. We're martial artists.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's all like your mindset too, right? What you want, right? Out of, you can be starving or you can be doing well. It's really up to us, right? And jiu-jitsu gives us those tools, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To achieve. When did you know that it was the right decision?
When did I know it was the right decision? Well, for me, there's so much, again, just coming from Asian background,
that you could do it as a career, you know? I think for me was when I came back from Brazil and my first year, and I started making like a living from it, you know? Like I had a business, you know? And I was like, okay, I can do this, you know? I think I can do this.
I guess when I really decided it was a career is probably when I started doing seminars, you know? Because when I was teaching at Rickson's, I never really made much money at all from it, even though I was teaching quite a few classes. I was teaching a lot of classes, but the school didn't make a ton of money. And so I was always working at nightclubs to make money. So I was working, you know, at all the nightclubs here in LA, from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, and that's where I would make most of my money. And then I was teaching as a way just to give back to jiu-jitsu, to help Rickson and help the school and kind of give back. And so even those years, like as a brown belt and then a black belt, teaching at a school, I would never felt like, oh, okay, I can really support myself and have a good life doing it. And back then, I mean, even though I was working at a nightclub, I mean, it was living like 3 or 4 of us in a 3-bedroom apartment in Inglewood. Right. We were just like, and we'd always have 1 person or 2 people sleeping in the living room, and we had mats there. So it wasn't until I started teaching seminars that I felt like, wow, like there's quite a few people that will come out and value my time enough that, there's an exchange of energy, right? Like I'm giving to them and then they're giving back to me. So that was the first time I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, and that's why I kind of went the seminar route. I'm like, you go to teach a seminar, everyone's super excited and happy to be there and excited to learn. And and for me, I feel the most value for my time.
Do you want to, like you had Dynamics MMA, right? Do you want to have do another school? Do you see yourself doing that?
No, I don't. And that's one of the reasons when I moved to Vegas, there's so much responsibility, as you know.
Yeah.
Most people, and that's the crazy thing, like going from being a good practitioner to opening up a school, it's like starting over at white belt. Like most people think like if you're good at jiu-jitsu, you're going to be able to have a successful school, and that's not it at all. You have to really learn the business, right, and understand the business. And so you really have to, if you have no understanding of business, you don't know anything about, don't open up a school, right, or have someone that's good at business. So even at Dynamics, there was so much learning involved just the first few years of how to properly run a school. I considered myself by that time a good teacher, but I had no idea of how to run a school, and the sales and the marketing, and that aspect was something that I was never passionate about. So I always wanted someone else to do it. And then when you have someone else do it too, you also have to be able to oversee them, right? And so at the end of the day, that's what ended up happening is I just didn't want to be involved with the sales, the marketing, the business aspect, the accounting, doing the meetings, like overseeing that. For me, I just wanted to teach, and that's why, I just travel and teach seminars, because it allows me to focus on what I really love instead of spending so much time focusing on the other aspects, which are, crucial to be able to have that business. Yeah.
It's tough for sure. It's a lot of work, right?
It's a lot of work, yeah. And for me, I don't, it's...
They only see the front, right? Like people,
especially if you have a successful school, it's a ton of work. And I just realized that, with my experience today, that's not really what I wanted to do. I didn't want to commit my time and invest my time into managing and doing sales and doing marketing and doing the business side of things. Some people enjoy it, some people love it, and some people are great at it. I enjoy really spending my time with people and teaching people jiu-jitsu. So that's why, my goal is now just to focus on the seminars and the camps, and so I can really keep doing what I feel.
Where can people find out about your seminars and camps?
So on Facebook, I post everything on my Facebook, and also on my website. We'll have a tab over there for seminars. HiddenJujitsu.com.
Okay.
Yeah. HiddenJujitsu.com.
What do you have coming up? I know we're still in the COVID-ish area.
Yeah, we're still in the COVID area. I have a few seminars coming up. I'll be teaching in Woodstock, Illinois. One of my black belts, Dan Hart, has a school out there, and so that's coming up in June. And then I will be teaching in Oklahoma City and Tulsa in July at my buddy Ty Gay School, who owns Redline Jiu-Jitsu. And then in August, I'll be in Montana at SBG Montana, which is up in Kalispell. So my friend Travis has 4 schools, SBG, schools there in Montana.
Nice.
And so that's always fun. Montana's so beautiful. Have you ever been?
I haven't actually. I'd love to go visit.
It's right next to Glacier National Park. You should come up for a vacation.
Maybe I will. Yeah. When are you going? August, you said?
August. I think the weekend of the 8th. Yeah.
Is that a good time to go?
They said last year we went. It was my first time going last year, right? And
I might do that.
fell in love with it.
How long are you going to be there for?
Probably a week.
Okay.
And I'm going to teach.
I might
2
go there
days.
with my family, and that could
There's
work
so
out.
much like amazing nature, right? And I love nature. I love, like, we went whitewater rafting. There's mountains. It's right next to Glacier National Park, which is obviously a big tourist attraction. But my chick fell in love with it. She was like, "Oh man, I love it up here. Like, we should move here. It's just like pine trees and mountains and lakes, right?" And they said, "Yeah, you're here at the perfect time. We have 10 weeks of good weather a year, and the rest of the year it's just like
So cold.
shit."
So
So
cold.
it's like freezing cold. So a bunch of the guys from Montana came to my camp. I had a camp in Costa Rica in February. You know, and we get to Costa Rica and it's like 80 something degrees, 90, hot and humid, and you know, everyone's going to the beach. And they're like, "Yeah, when we left Montana this morning, it was 17 below."
Oh my God.
Negative 17. I'm
Fahrenheit,
like, yes,
yeah.
I'm glad. I bet you're glad you're here.
Oh my God. I've been to Minnesota in the winter time for a wrestling. There was like a D2 championship, and I went to support a friend.
Yeah,
And it
still
was
all the way up
so
there.
cold. Just as soon as you came out of the airport,
Yeah.
it was just ridiculous.
And we're not used to it coming
Yeah.
from, you know, California, New Mexico.
I was in New
California.
Mexico. Yeah, it was just something else. you
Yeah.
know?
We're not used to it. I think you lose the tolerance for it, you know, when you.
We went to Alaska last few weeks ago, and it was cold, but you're kind of like expecting that. I think being in Alaska.
Okay.
But it wasn't. I don't know. It was like April, so it wasn't that. It was
Yeah.
it was snow. We went north of Anchorage, you know, so
Okay.
it was like snow everywhere. But yeah, it was. I don't know. But Minnesota. My time in Minnesota was just. I just remember it just being just too cold to to live there.
I'm over
but
the
to
cold.
visit, I'd like to do that. You know,
I like
at the right time.
I like the cold for short periods of time, not like long, dreary, cold winters. I can't do that.
What are some of your favorite places to visit, to do camps and seminars?
Man, every place is
Unique, huh?
place is so unique, right? I loved Bali. We did a camp in Bali a few years ago. I really
No
want to
way.
go back to Bali. That was amazing. Right before the pandemic, we did a camp in Thailand, and we did a Tiger Muay Thai
Okay.
facility.
Yeah, I've
they
been
just
there,
opened
yeah.
up a new beachside facility
nice.
in Phuket, which is right on the beach, and that was an amazing camp. I mean, we try to pick every place is special and every place is amazing, right? That where we go to do the camps. So we try to pick a great location, you know, that's usually vacation and we do enough training where people feel like, okay, we've done a couple hours of training, they get enough jiu-jitsu in, but there's also plenty of time for people to enjoy
Traveling,
the location,
yeah.
you know, and like go out to eat and go out and hang out at night and have nice dinners and go to the beach and do the activities to really kind of explore the location.
What's a place you'd like to go that you haven't gone?
Probably Europe. I'd like to see a little bit more of Europe and go through Europe. I'm hoping to do something in Ireland, maybe, next year. This year we talked about doing something in Ireland, and just because COVID and everything, and then that new UK variant came out that they shut back down again. But yeah.
Yeah, I think Americans can't. I think that May they're supposed to open up the EU again
Oh yeah.
for Americans to travel to.
Okay. Well,
We'll see, right? We'll
22
see.
then.
2020. We'll see how it plays out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So it's amazing to see jiu-jitsu grow everywhere, and then just to see it take over, you know, all over Europe, all over everywhere, the whole world,
Well,
Asia.
Who your friend was just going back to Georgia,
Right.
What's his name?
Irakli.
Irakli. So he's going back to Georgia, and I asked him, well, how is it over there? You know, he said he was in Russia before then, and he's like, man, it's growing so big, and I'm just like, wow, that's I mean, it's so amazing, you know, that it's the last 20 years, how much it's grown, how much it's exploded, how much it's spread. It's really inspiring. But like anything, I think a lot of people have that mindset when you see something and it works well, or they found a better way to do it, right? Then that's the way they're going to do it. And I think when it comes to martial arts, you know, jiu-jitsu had that proving ground where it proved itself, right? So jiu-jitsu proved itself as one of the most effective disciplines after the first few UFCs. So if you're going to do something, if you're going to commit your time to doing any martial art, why not choose one of the most effective martial arts?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? To commit your time to.
Yeah, like one of like masters, when you talk to them, right? They're like, I'm always asking them, what is the thing that you get most, what jiu-jitsu gives you,
Mm-hmm.
And I always say like the lifestyle, and I always think about that, for like these countries like Georgia, but like some of the stands, like the Kazakhstan and all those countries, and you're like, you can't even, I can't wrap my head around it, but there's some tough people out there, right?
Oh gosh.
Like Chechnya, and they all love jiu-jitsu. And
well, they all grow up grappling, right?
Right,
like
right.
Wrestling is huge in all of those countries, and the type of wrestling that they do is very different than the American style wrestling. It's much more playful. It's much more smooth. It's much more like jiu-jitsu. It's much more relaxed, and it's more like, where I feel like American wrestling is much more aggressive. It's a lot more physical. And so, yeah.
Dan Gable style.
Exactly. That's where a lot of it comes from, right?
Yeah,
Dan Gable style. And so, I trained with Vladimir Matyushenko, who's a 6-time Soviet national champion, right? And literally, when you try to wrestle him, or you try to move around on your feet with him, like, man, he makes it so effortless. It's so smooth, and it's crazy how he's able to change angles and control and set up footwork and shift your weight around to make you off balance. So, and those guys grow up doing it from the time they were very young. It's huge over there, right? So I think it's just a natural progression for them, is like, okay, start doing submissions and then start to incorporate jiu-jitsu, or they already have sambo and stuff over there, but, basically incorporate other techniques that they see in jiu-jitsu.
They have great, like, tough, the tough guys grow up wrestling, sambo, all these other things. Like, why do you think jiu-jitsu is growing so much? Like, it's growing everywhere, but especially I see it growing out there a lot. Why do you think that is? When they have these other grappling arts and they grow up wrestling and they already have like these things in place.
I think it just adds on top of it. It's like Mark Schultz, right? He started training jiu-jitsu. He's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu under Pedro Sauer.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
And I think it's the same thing for him. I heard a quote that he said, and even though he's I think an Olympic gold medalist in wrestling, right? When he experienced jiu-jitsu, he was like, wow, this is like the next level, because now it's not only
the next
completely
level,
being able to dominate someone, but you're able to dominate them by like holding them down, controlling them, but now you can submit them, right? And so he started learning jiu-jitsu, and he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
It's just so complete, right? You go everywhere. There's no restrictions, really.
Yeah.
Is that one of the things you think that makes it so popular? Where you can just play and there's no really rules?
I think one of the other things that makes it so it's very mentally stimulating, right? There's a very high level of strategy involved. So there's a very high level of thinking. There's so many techniques, I think, and there's so much strategy, right? You have to know your position, be aware of what's coming, be aware of the counters to what's coming. No, from this position, okay, he can move this way. He can do maybe these 3 or 4 options to get out, and I have to be prepared for that. And if I'm prepared for that, then maybe how do I take advantage of that, and how do I take advantage of the next step? So just, I think the high level of thinking. I think the other thing too is that you can train it pretty intense with a very low risk of injury.
Right.
Which is different than the striking arts.
That's another thing, yeah.
You can't train kickboxing going 100% with someone and come back and train the next day, right? You're going to get a concussion. You're going to get CTE. You're going to be banged up. You're going to have your legs, all these bruises on your legs. So you can't really train it going 100%. But with jiu-jitsu, you can train pretty close to 100%, Now, as you get older, you can't do that as consistently, but you can train 100% and still, so you can kind of get that feeling. You can train with someone using 100% of their strength, being explosive and stuff like that, and still with, while also, not a very high risk of injury.
I don't know. I had a random thought. One of my black students, he was a high level psychologist, and we're kind of talking about how when you do jiu-jitsu, you kind of stay young. Like, I don't know if it's mentally, whatever. Just stay young. I feel like people that do jiu-jitsu, they're younger.
Yeah.
They just stay younger.
Well, I mean, there's science that backs that up, right?
Right,
so, they say chess helps your brain. They've done studies on chess and how chess helps, the wiring in your brain or the formation of neurons or the myelin sheath around the neurons. And then exercise too helps neurogenesis, helps your brain to be able to create new neurons. And so it totally makes sense that it helps you, at least your mind stay young.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And of course, exercises, helps your body in so many ways. And so
we talked about it, and he's like, yeah, when you're a kid, everything's in the now, right? You're in the present, and as you get older, we're always like in the past or we're in the future. We're never like in the present. We're not present, right?
Isn't that crazy?
And
yeah.
Jiu-jitsu, when somebody's trying to choke you or whatever, get you in a submission, it brings you to the now. You're in the total present.
Yeah, when you're fighting for your life, you can't be thinking about anything else, right? And that's the cool thing with jiu-jitsu too. I think when you're training, a lot of times you have that experience that someone's really trying to hurt you, even though they're not. So it lets you kind of experience that. It's as close, very similar to almost that feeling of being in a fight without really being in a fight, right? I think that's awesome for people to be able to overcome that and to be able to deal with that stress and be able to start to deal with it.
Yeah.
And be more comfortable with it.
Yeah. The human connection, right? The touch, just the relationships, right? The trust, right, that you build.
Absolutely.
Like, somebody's trying to choke you or get you in an arm bar, and if you tap out, they hopefully let go, but they will, right?
Yeah.
If you're in the,
that's what we were talking about a little bit today. Like, your training partners are there to help you, right? We need each other to get better. I can't get better at jiu-jitsu by myself. So, I trust you, you trust me, and we're here to support each other. Even though I'm trying to tap you out and you're trying to tap me out, we're both doing it to help each other get better. Right? And if you catch me, I'm going to learn something, right? Oh, don't put my arm there anymore. Don't do this, don't do that. And if I catch you, you learn something, right?
Yeah. When some of the master worlds things, like some of the old teams like that used to be, like Carlson and Gracie Baja, because that was my association. And like we're all hanging out together. Like I'm with my professor and his buddies, and then the other team, and even the guys that I used to compete against, right? When we're younger, you kind of like, you're like you don't like those, like they're the enemies or whatever, But now that we're older, man, there's so much connection, so much gratitude, because these guys brought out the best in you. They made you rise.
That camaraderie,
up.
Right? And it's like going to war. Like there's a bond that you build. Like anytime you go through difficult things with other people, you have a connection, right? And I think that's like, it's like going to war with people, right? You're just like, man, we went through that together, right? Or you understand what that person went through. So there's always going to be, I think the bond it creates between people is amazing. I was telling someone else that the other day. I was like, man, one of the things that, like, almost all my best friends in life have come through jiu-jitsu. And I was telling him, like, it creates such a strong bond between people because just the difficulty of what you're trying to do together, and you help each other get better, right?
Speaking your brother, he lives in Oklahoma. He's a black belt as well, right?
No, he's a purple belt now.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a purple belt. But he lived in LA for many years, and I think he moved back probably about 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
He was out here for quite a few years. Trained at Rickson's as well, and but he's built a little different than me. He's a little bit smaller than me, and so he just had a lot more injuries, than me. Where I was a little bit bigger, and I was also, while I was doing jiu-jitsu, I was very focused on just maintaining my body. So I was still doing some strength workouts to be able to like make sure my joints are strong and so.
Okay. So he's training again?
He trains a little bit. He was training a lot more, and I think recently he's just been so busy working. He's works as a electrician on airplanes. So he works at Tinker Air Force Base out there. And he's an electrician on the airplanes. I think there's a certain plane. I forget which plane it is, but there's a certain plane they work on. But he gets to see all these like crazy cool planes flying in. He'll send me pictures from time. He's like, "Oh, check out this F-35 just pulled in, or F-18." I'm just like, "Wow, that's insane." It's like,
I was gonna ask you just how it was like kind of doing jiu-jitsu with your brother, having your brother there, and
it
quite
was
a few years, right?
It was competitive. Yeah, it was competitive. Well, when we were training together at Rickson's, he was a belt underneath me. And so, you know, you match the competitiveness of jiu-jitsu with sibling rivalry, right? So it got competitive, but it's the same thing. You push each other to get better, you know?
Yeah.
Especially
bonding,
he's
right?
my older brother.
Oh, he's your older brother.
He's my older brother, but he's smaller than me. Right. And so there's a rivalry with him there. Like he wants to say the older brother, right, and tell me what to do. And like, and then I'm bigger now. Like, no, you can't tell me what to do. Right? So,
that's funny.
Right.
That's why he moved out of town. But he's good. He's good, and he likes what he does. And
yeah, he loves. You know, the thing with my brother is he's also very analytical in his mind. He's really, really intelligent, and so it's crazy because he would always like he was injured a lot. But he would always sit and watch class, right? And so it was kind of like Elio almost. I'd be teaching and he would sit there and say, "Oh, think about this detail, or what about this detail, or did you see?" Like, so he could teach. Back then, he was a way better teacher than me. So this is when we were blue belt, purple belt level. He knew so much jiu-jitsu and just had it soaked into his brain, and he just understood that. And it could have been too because he was smaller. He had to be much more refined in the technique, where I was a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, that I could get through some of the technique by, you know, committing a little extra effort to it. But yeah, his brain is so he knows so much jiu-jitsu.
he made a nice post on Facebook that I read about you.
Oh, okay.
That he did I think he did a seminar or something with you, and he was just kind of blown away how, like, you know, technical and how much knowledge you had, and you were able to break things down to the simplest level.
Yeah. Well, it's taken a lot of time, you know, and man, I've been teaching for, you know, what I consider about 20 years now, kind of full time. And that has been a big goal of mine. Is when I started teaching, I said, okay, well, now that I'm going to start teaching, I want to be the best that I can be, right? It's irrelevant to be the best in the world, but I want to challenge myself, become better every year or every month or whatever. And so that was always a big goal for me, is to become a better teacher, and it's taken a lot of work. And when I look back now at when I was teaching as a brown belt, or even at early days as a black belt, like the level of understanding is way more, but also my ability to break things down and communicate it to other people is huge. So the guy that was there today with the patch on his eye, he came up to me afterwards. He's like, "Wow, man, I had always heard about frames and stuff like this, but today the way that you said it really resonated with me. Wow, it was like so profound. It was like really deep. It really hit me, and I just understand so much better now." I'm like, that's amazing, you know, because sometimes like the way that one teacher will explain it and then the way another person, then all of a sudden it just clicks, right? And so he said he had that kind of experience today. Now it just so much clicks, like about, you know, how you transfer energy and connection and stuff like that. And so I was like, well, I'm glad I was able to do it. You know, it's taken me a lot of work, because for me, I'm so passionate about passing on this information and sharing this information. How do I do it in a way where I have a short period of time to be able to spend with these people? Right? So how do I make that impact in this couple hours that I have with you?
Yeah. I was noticing on the leg lock exchange, just how you interacted, and you asked them a question like, "What about this?" to make them think, right? And then you went back and forth, and it's like high level, super high level. I was like, wow, he's a really, really good teacher, really high level.
Well, and
that shows, you know.
And that's I think an important thing to do to students is, instead of you telling them, right, ask them a question. Because for me, I always say, okay, what are you doing here? What's my hand? What is my hand doing? Because for me, I don't want to have students that just memorize a bunch of techniques. That's not my goal, is to teach you 20 techniques and have you memorize techniques. I want to create masters of the art. my mission is to have you really understand jiu-jitsu. And in order for you to really understand jiu-jitsu, you have to understand every single element, like why I put my hand here, why I do this, why I do that. So I'm constantly, when I'm teaching, I'm constantly asking questions. Okay, why do I put my hand here? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing it? Because I want them to understand it, the reason for everything they're doing, not just do this because I said so, or do this because this is how I'm doing it, right? Oh, there's a reason I put my hand there. Oh, there's a reason I tuck my hip. Oh, there's a reason I don't want I don't want to push with my hand, right? And so once they understand that, now there's a deeper level. And because if I push with my hand, this happens. Or if I do this, this happens. And then, so really you have a deep level of understanding of it. Yeah. Right? It's not just memorizing a bunch of techniques.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like we were talking about the tack foot stuff, right? And the 7 key components and the structure of the body. And then you're basically, kind of saying it in,
giving a tack fit class without even knowing it.
Well, the people that do tack fit, they were like, oh, that's so cool. But it's like, that's how deep of understanding, right? That you're breaking it down to the simplest levels. And it was really beautiful. I was like, I think 4 or 5 people kind of, it's like a tack fit.
Boom, light bulb. Yeah. It's so cool because, it's like with the tack fit, right? It's just how to maximize your body, how to use your body in the most efficient way possible, and understanding all the connections and movements in your body and being efficient and using, understanding this tool that we have, this machine that we have. And that's really what jiu-jitsu is too, right? All martial arts is just really understanding how to use the body in the most efficient way possible.
Right. One of the, what's his name? He came up from San Diego. I just went blank. He was just talking to me about that, just how he never did jiu-jitsu. And now that he does jiu-jitsu, he appreciates all the stuff that he learned from tack fit.
Yeah.
Caesar awesome. Is his name, Caesar. So he was like, this is so amazing, But that's why all these things, right? The frames and all it's for combat, right? Even if it was back in the whatever, if you had swords or shields, right? The frames and all that stuff transfers over, right?
Yeah.
To all those tools.
There's stuff even from other martial arts that I see, like, oh wow, they do that in boxing. I do that in jiu-jitsu, and like clinching stuff that we do in jiu-jitsu. Like, oh wow, that that's similar to boxing, how that people defend and clinch, and like. Because clinching is a huge tool in boxing too, right?
Right.
Boxers start getting hit, they want to start to clinch, and so there's a system of how to do that in an efficient way. Where if you get hit and you're dizzy, you want to clinch because sometimes you need to buy yourself time. You can't run away. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Do you remember like back in the day? I don't know if you felt that way, but I was so proud to do jiu-jitsu, and it was in the early days of like we're jiu-jitsu and we're the best, like we're better than everybody. If you do karate, you suck, but kind of, right? And now like we're talking about how we, you can learn from other martial arts too.
Yeah. There was a moment for me. So I went to Japan in 2000 when Rickson fought in the Coliseum, that event. And we were kind of all ringside. And in the middle of, the tournament, it wasn't a tournament, it was actually like bouts, but in the middle there was a demonstration, a karate demonstration, and I saw these guys, they were breaking ice and doing this stuff, but the thing that blew me away was these karate guys, they were about 145 pounds, 150 pounds. They had one guy hold a baseball bat out with his hand like this, just by the bottom of the bat, and the karate guy lined up with the bat, and he threw a roundhouse kick at the bat. And the bat literally looked like it exploded. It like splintered, snapped in half, and it just went poof. And then he turned around and threw another roundhouse kick and just exploded with his shin, right? Just boom, shin right into the wood, and
Damn.
so fast that the bat doesn't go like this. The guy's just pulling out.
Exploded.
And just
the impact.
And literally, my jaw hit the ground, and I was just like, and I looked at my friend and I said, imagine if that was your dome. Imagine if that was your head, And we were just like, all these martial arts are legit, right? They work. There's a reason that they've been
around for thousands of years,
dumbed
right?
down, of course, throughout the years. But man, it was one of the most impressive martial arts demonstrations I'd ever seen. But yeah, like for me, that was like, okay, this karate is legit. Like, the 10-year-old
Right,
kids walking around
right,
with a
right,
black
right,
belt,
right,
it's different in the United States, but these
like-
guys have dedicated their life to this art. And, if you got kicked by that dude, you're done.
Yeah.
Game over. So
Yeah, like the today with the McDojos, whatever you want to. They're good. I think they're
absolutely.
good to develop certain things, right? But like the karate guys in the 70s and probably early 80s, right?
The old
Like
school
they
guys.
were the old school, the original guys. They were tough guys.
Yeah.
They knew how to fight.
Absolutely. And as it grew and grew and grew and became, people were more interested in it and people saw they can make money and it was a
Right.
business thing. It was, profitable as a business, then the level started to drop. But that
Right.
happens in every.
Yeah, like a lot of
martial
the, you've done, you've probably done some martial art business courses, and they have the old school karate guys in them, right? And they talk about how the Karate Kid saved the industry, right? Because it was Fight Club, right?
that was
Kind
it.
of like how Jiu-Jitsu was back
Yeah.
in the day, right? And so it was like the Karate Kid saved the industry. And after that, the parents started to enroll their kids, and people-
Everyone wanted to send their kid to karate because they didn't want their kid getting bullied at school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but just normal people would go to learn like the discipline and the good things, right, that you get
Yeah.
from martial arts, the character developments, and so it's good and it's good too, right? It has its good things. It's just interesting the just the different times, right, and then the
Yeah.
similarities between jiu-jitsu and the karate and stuff from back in those days.
Yeah, and then people found jiu-jitsu and like, oh, now that's effective and that works, and let's everyone do that. So
Yeah, hopefully we always keep it real, and I try to keep it real for me, just
I think a lot of I think it's inevitable that there will be a certain level of degradation as it grows and expands. It's so hard to maintain a certain level of integrity and consistency the more things grow, right? And that's that with businesses too, right?
Right.
Like, maintaining a certain level of quality. So I think there are certain instructors out there who are committed to doing that, which is so nice to see, right? That they're it's not just about making money. It's about being passionate about the art and wanting to pass on the art and really help their students, because at the end of the day, what we're really trying to teach people is how to be comfortable in probably one of the most uncomfortable situations they're ever going to encounter in their life, a fight, right? You get in a fight, in a street fight, you don't know if you're going to get killed or not, right? All it takes is one punch to end someone's life. So for that high stress environment and very dangerous environment, that's basically what we're trying to do, is help people to develop comfort. And so there has to be a certain level of intensity to the training and toughness to the training. And so, it's nice that there's still quite a few instructors that are willing to kind of push their students and help them struggle, because that's where the growth comes, is from the struggle and dealing with the difficulty and
being hard.
like, having it hard and stressful and uncomfortable, and letting them feel like they were in a fight and like, wow, I survived. And they grow from that. And where other schools, it's more about just keeping it soft and easy and making sure that everyone can get a black belt, which I think there needs to be some type of balance in there, where you have to challenge the person, you have to force them or make them go through the struggle.
Then you feel that, right? You feel that, and you're proud of that for the rest of your life. Yeah. What do you think about, like, and it's a broad question, but just the belts, like what's your philosophy on the belts and how people should be ranked up and time, because I had the Gracie Baja, like you show up for, before, like a certain amount of years, and you can get, stripes and belts, and I did do that for a while, but back in the day, I got stripes one time, like Druckley, he's like, okay, you're a 4-stripe blue belt. And I was like, yes, and that was the only time I ever got stripes,
I never got stripes
Right,
on
right.
any of my belts except my black belt. And I got 3 stripes in one day.
On your black belt?
So, I mean, look, belts, stripes, there's no standard, right? There's no book, and even if there was a book, not everyone would follow the same book, right, of standards. I think that's such a personal thing between the student and his instructor. And really what it comes down to is me as an instructor, I'm acknowledging the progress that you've made. But I mean, and you've seen it. I mean, there's some black belts that the guy was talking to us today. Oh yeah, this kid that's a blue belt, he's a phenom. He got recruited by Atos and he's competing in the adult division. He's submitting all these black belts and he's a blue belt. What does that mean? I mean, it all comes down to skill level, and so belt doesn't really determine skill level, right? Belt doesn't really determine knowledge either. It's really just an acknowledgement from your instructor that, hey, I think that you're a certain level. So, and it's personal between that instructor and that student. So for example, I'll just give you one of the things that really shifted my mind was I was there doing a belt testing later as our school, Rickson School, in the later years, they started implementing a belt testing thing, and to try to maintain some kind of standard. And one of the guys that was doing the test was this older guy, 50 years old, consistently training, once or twice a week for years. And he'd been training like 10 years. And I was there at the testing. I didn't think he did that well. And Rickson gave him his brown belt. And I was like, why do you give him his brown belt? I don't feel performance-wise he was a brown belt. And he's like, look, he's 50 years old. He's not going to be like as competitive as this guy that's 20 years old and that has a background in wrestling. But he's dedicated and he's committed this much time, and he's always, here on Saturday, always here on Wednesday. So he deserves his belt, And he said the standard would be different for you because I know your potential is different.
That's it.
Right? You have a different potential. Like he's never going to be a world champion black belt, but he's dedicated a good portion of his life to the art, to learning the art. He's coming and he trains with everybody. He'll train with everybody. He doesn't hide from anyone. He's a tough guy. He's not submitting a lot of guys. He doesn't have like a strong attack, but he's tough to, like, he defends. He defends well, right? And he's hard to submit, right? He deserves his belt. And so that made me, wow, okay, that was a huge learning lesson for me, because I thought every guy needs to be tough. Every guy needs to be hardcore to get a brown belt. Like that guy's getting his butt kicked by, a 20, he doesn't deserve a brown belt by a 20-year-old, And it comes down to Rickson seeing that one individual's potential. And for me, I was held to a completely different standard, but because he saw a different potential in me.
Yeah.
So I think that's, that was a huge eye opener for me. And I even with your blue belts and even with, you've been teaching for a long time, all of your blue belts, they don't train the same way. Some guys are more aggressive. Some guys are more passive. Some guys like the top game more. Some guys like the bottom game more. So each one has their own different and unique qualities about them, and how they train and how they express jiu-jitsu, right? They don't need to be the exact same, but yeah, this guy, at a certain level, you feel like, okay, this guy's ready for the belt.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about, I want to bring out the potential, right? And the students, right? And two, I think, there's a lot of factors, right? Their age, where they're at in life, what they're doing, the effort that they're making, for the team, right? How they integrate with everybody, the contribution, right?
Yeah, and they're them as a human being. That's so important too, as a martial art. Like, are they a good person, right?
Which is a part of that, right? How do they work with the team? Do they support everybody?
I think so. I think so. It might be different at other schools or different at other places, but for me, I mean, that's something that I look at. Like, is this guy a good person? One of the big things for me, like, to give someone a black belt is, can they pass on the art to others? Do they have a deep enough level understanding of the art that they can now go out and teach it and pass it on to others? Because that's a lot of times what happens at a lot of schools is someone gets a black belt and they're like, oh, I love jiu-jitsu, I got my black belt, I'm going to go open up a school. So do I trust them? Have I given them enough knowledge, or do they understand it, right? Because it's a partnership. When, as a teacher, like, you're going to give them the information, but it's up to them to absorb it.
Yeah, the culture too, right? The culture, like, are they part of the culture? Is it in them,
right?
Their soul, right?
Yeah, and usually, by the time most guys get a black belt, right, that's a significant, they say on average it's 10 years. Someone's hung out long enough, they've gone through enough tough trainings, they've probably by the time they're a black belt have gotten past at least 1 or 2 injuries and come back from 1 or 2 injuries, right? That there's a certain level of dedication, right? So I think that's, obviously super, super important, because what do they say? They say most people quit after blue belt or before
right,
blue belt.
Blue belt, yeah.
Something.
And before, well, I think there's 2, right? Right at the beginning, white belt, and then once they get their blue belt.
Yeah, and so for someone to make it to black belt, it's like crazy. I mean, I forget the statistics. I think either Hiran and Henner did or Pedro Sauer did something where they looked at, they went back through their records and they saw how many students ever came through their doors and how many end up getting a blue belt and then a black belt. And it was like crazy, the number. It's
I'd
like
like to
1
see
in
that.
10,000 or something.
Yeah, I know. I just know like people that get their purple belt are from blue belt to purple belt. People that get the purple are really likely to go all the way, right? The statistic has to go much higher. I feel like
Once they get their purple belt?
once you get their purple belt.
Yeah, I could see that. Because purple belt is usually 4 or 5 years that you're in, so you already have the bug. And I think at purple belt you really start to, you're not just surviving anymore. I think a lot of times a white belt, it's so panicky and it's so much of just like, oh, let me just survive the training day. Let me just see how, if I don't get beat up and don't get tapped out. And blue belt, I think it's still, but by the time you get purple belt, you start to understand more strategy, right? You start to be able to put movements together. You start to know like, okay, this move works with this move. So if I go for this and he defends, I can go to this. And people are starting to think more. And so it becomes a lot more fun at that point at purple belt, because now it's not just a physical game, but it's a mental game too.
Yeah.
Right? It becomes more like chess.
Yeah. And you talk about injuries, and I keep thinking about your eye injury that you had to lay there for, was it 2 months?
2 months, yeah.
2 months, like on your side, like all day long, all night long.
Blindfolded, no TV, no books, right? Just
you were listening to audiobooks, right? Saved your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a blessing, right? Like all of those difficult things in life. Now, when you look back at it, like, wow, I learned so much.
And your knees got.
Yeah, I blew up both my knees.
Both your knees in that match, right?
Yeah, when I was a purple belt. That was, but started working out hard and rehab my legs, and that was just pure determination and grit. And
what made you? What made you? Like, I should do something else. I should. Become a investment banker or something, make $1 billion. Why do you double down and triple down?
Nothing else that I enjoyed. I didn't have a lot of experience in life. I didn't have a lot of, I wasn't exposed to a lot of things in life. When I was young, it was always just school. And I know I didn't really enjoy school. And so I had that, like, okay, any of these other things, these career options or paths require me going to college. Like, that's still the mindset, like, graduate from high school, go to college, right? And I just did not enjoy school at all. Now, I mean, for me, school was kind of always like forced learning, right? Now I love learning. And I don't know if it's just because I'm more mature. I love reading. I'm always reading books. But, and I'm constantly trying to learn and absorb more information, but then I just hated it.
Right, because we're learning what we want to learn, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, rather than learn something that we're not really interested in.
Forced to learn, and a lot of the information that you learn in school, you end up never using it. It's never applicable to life, anyways. How does that going to serve me?
Yeah. Well, man, awesome. I know it was just a class today, but it was an amazing class. I really appreciate, like I said, the details and the deep understanding and the ability to explain it and break it down to the simplest levels.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Hey, my buddy Scotty, who you know well, we talked about, we wanted to provide a discount code. So if anybody wants to buy anything on my website, hiddenjujitsu.com, that's a listener to your show, we have a discount code for them. And the discount code is Alberto.
Oh,
yeah. 50%. Alberto in all caps, 15% off until May 2021. So you get 15% off on anything on the website if if you're a listener to the podcast and you use Alberto in all caps on Hidden Jiu-Jitsu, you get 15% off on whatever you want to buy. So
Henry Akins, yeah, go to his website. Learn those details, you know. There's levels.
Hidden details.
Levels.
It's and so that was cool that the first time that me and you have kind of played around doing jiu-jitsu, and working with you on just some of the stuff, that took me years to get good at, and years more to be good at teaching it, is feeling those subtleties, like tuck your hip a little bit more, pull that shoulder back and do. So much of it is just those subtleties, and that's why I call it hidden jiu-jitsu. It's like, hey, I can show you, hey, tuck your hip, but then when you feel it, it's these little nuances and little adjustments that make all the difference, right? Yeah. And a lot of the guys were like, whoa, I've never seen the difference between sitting in the guard like this and sitting in the guard tucking my hips, and then it feels so different. And what's crazy is, from the outside perspective, if you were just an observer, many times you would never pick up that detail of what that person's doing with their hips to prevent, and then it changes whether someone can break you down, pull you down in the guard or not. So
yeah, that's it.
It's magic, right? Yeah. Those little details.
I love that. I wanted to give a shout out to Scotty too for the CHIPSA. You went and got stem cells, right?
Yeah. So that was awesome. Went down there. They have a hospital down in Tijuana, Mexico.
Right over the border, right? Like,
yeah,
just like right on the beach.
20 minutes from San Diego, 30 minutes from San Diego. So me and actually a couple other guys, my friend Dan Hart, who's a black belt underneath me, a lot of us were in our late 30s, 40s, 50s. We just have an accumulation of injuries, right? Because we enjoy the physical struggle, right? I had another friend of mine who was like almost a professional snowboarder, and we were all down there doing stem cell treatments. And it's so cool because down there they have so many different therapies that you can do to help your body just heal up and recover, right? So we were doing stem cells. They have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber down there. They have this machine called a PEMF, pulse electromagnetic frequency, which
what does that do?
Puts an electromagnetic pulse. It's supposed to bring like blood flow to the area and help stimulate and like awaken the cells. I don't know. I don't really understand
like your joints
science.
And stuff. Joints.
Everything.
Anywhere.
Joints are anywhere. Yeah, but
interesting.
The far infrared sauna. So there's a ton of research out there already on saunas. Like Dr. Rhonda Patrick talks about the sauna all the time, and quite a few other people that are in the health field, like Ben Greenfield and my buddy Rob Wolf. They always talk about the sauna and heat shock proteins and how beneficial the sauna is. So they have all these different therapies that we went down there and were doing, and it was just, I spent a week down there and just about healing my body up. So that was really, really awesome. And it's cool because the stem cell treatments they have down there, first of all, the doctor that is doing the stem cell treatments is like world class. He has patents on, I think like 100 different stem cells, but a lot of those treatments they don't do in the United States, which is crazy. That the U.S. is so far behind in regenerative medicine, like all these guys like Bas Rutten, Joe Rogan, all these guys that went and did stuff for their bodies, even Dana White, he had that Meniere's disease. They either go to Germany or they have to go down to like Panama or Ecuador or Colombia to do the treatments, because the U.S. is just so far behind in allowing these things. So this is cool because it's just right across the border. You can literally fly down to San Diego and be in Mexico, and you can go do those treatments. So if you're an athlete and you have anything going on, I had just had another buddy went down there. He was having some neck issues from just years and years of jiu-jitsu. Got some stem cell treatments in his neck. So
I went down there, had it done in December or November last year.
Yeah.
And first step was just like, how easy it was to just drive over the border. I took my mom actually as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
She's like, "Are we in Mexico yet?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're already, right around the corner from the place," because it was really nice. It seems like it's so looks quick. Like it's like the U.S.
And what's cool is you can just, going into Mexico is easy. You just drive across the border and you're there. Right. So it's pretty easy. Getting back across, it took me about an hour to cross back over the border.
Okay.
But it wasn't bad. You just prepare for it, and I was just.
Did you get a medical pass?
No, I didn't even do a medical pass.
Oh, okay.
So with a passport, you have a passport card.
Okay.
You can have your passport or passport card. And so there's a separate lane for people that have the passport card.
Okay.
Where you can go through that lane and it takes about an hour. So it's pretty cool. I mean, Scotty's hospital, it's a cancer hospital, right? Where they treat the cancer patients with Gerson therapy and other therapies. Right. It's a lot of immunotherapy, helping the body to be able to boost your own immune system to be able to fight off the cancer instead of going like the chemo and radiation route, which is what is typical in the U.S. But yeah, they're starting to do a lot of the stem cell treatments there too. So that's awesome. And I know they've had a ton of athletes. I have a friend of mine who's a pro football player that tore his ACL. That's
going down there.
Yeah, planning on going down
Alberto
there.
Jr.
Mm-hmm. A ton of jiu-jitsu guys.
Yeah.
Eddie Bravo went down there.
Yeah.
He said like it was amazing. Like, you know, his hip, Lovato, I think something with his shoulder. Mm-hmm. He said the results that he had on his shoulder, it was amazing. So
yeah, what a resource, right, that we have right across the border.
I know, it's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I'm so excited for medicine and technology and where it's headed. Like, to be able to help guys like us, where it used to be physical therapy or just live with it, right? Or do surgery, right? Which a lot of times after the surgery, you feel worse, right?
I'm tack fit for me, tack fit, right?
Yeah.
I got tack fit, but
true.
but why not, right? All this technology, right? The stem cells and these things that are natural, right? That
and that's the thing too. Like the tack fit is doing the physical therapy, doing the work, but also helping your body to be able to heal itself. Instead of going in with what Western medicine is like, oh, you have an injury, let's cut into it.
Right, surgery or drugs, right?
Right. No, just so it's super cool. I think our knowledge of physical therapy, of how to heal the body using different modalities without having to do surgery, I mean, it's pretty awesome.
We got to stay on the mat, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Forever, to the end.
That's the plan, till the last day.
That's it. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you. And
thanks, Alberto.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Thank you, brother.